What if I told you there's a formula that businesses, banks, and even hospitals use to predict the future? A mathematical model that determines your loan approval, the price of your dream home, and even the ads you see online? Sounds crazy, right? Well, it's real, and it's called regression analysis. Today, we're diving into the powerful world of regression, one of the most essential tools in data science and machine learning. By the end of this video, you'll not only understand how it works, but you'll also see how it impacts your everyday life, your money, and even your health. And trust me, once you see how regression is shaping decisions behind the scenes, you'll never look at data the same way again. So before we jump in, make sure to smash that subscribe button and hit the bell icon, because we break down complex AI and machine learning topics into real-world insights you can actually use. All right, let's get started. You're a detective, but instead of solving crimes, you're solving mysteries hidden in piles of data. You have a case to crack. What's driving the outcomes? Why are sales dropping in one region but skyrocketing in another? What factors are contributing to patient recovery rates in a hospital? Regression analysis is your magnifying glass, your ultimate tool to uncover those hidden relationships and predict future outcomes with precision. But here's the kicker. Regression analysis isn't just a tool, it's a game changer. It powers decisions in industries like finance, healthcare, marketing, and even climate science. Think about it. Weather forecasts, regression, risk assessment in banking, regression predicting disease outbreaks. You guessed it, regression. This is why it's not just important, it's transformative. With it, you can anticipate trends, make data-driven decisions, and even prevent disasters. So how does it all work? How can a seemingly simple equation hold so much power? Today, we're going to dive deep into the mechanics of regression analysis. We'll explore how it works, the types of regression models that solve different challenges, and how to evaluate their performance. By the end, you'll not only understand it, but know how to apply it to solve real-world problems. Regression analysis has its pitfalls. Ignore a single assumption, and your results could be misleading or even outright wrong. Want to know what that assumption is and how to avoid it? Stick with me, because we're going to uncover the hidden traps and ensure your analysis stands on solid ground. Ready to unlock the secrets of regression? Let's get started. Have you ever tried to predict something in your life? Like estimating how much you'll spend on groceries next week, or how much traffic you'll hit on your commute? These predictions aren't just guesswork. They're based on patterns you've observed over time. Now, imagine scaling that process up with millions of data points. That's where regression analysis steps in, your ultimate tool for decoding relationships in data and making future predictions with precision. This slide introduces you to the three pillars of regression analysis: linear, logistic, and polynomial. And each of them is like a key to unlocking a different type of door in the data world. Let's start with linear regression. This is the classic go-to, and it's all about finding a straight line relationship between variables. Think of it like trying to predict your monthly electricity bill based on the number of hours you run your air conditioning. The more hours, the higher the bill. It's a simple proportional relationship, and linear regression helps us put numbers to that intuition. But not everything in life is linear. That's where logistic regression comes in. It's the detective of the regression family dealing with binary outcomes. For instance, imagine you're launching a new product and you want to predict whether a customer will buy it or not. Logistic regression doesn't just tell you yes or no, it gives you probabilities, like a 70% chance that someone will click buy now. This makes it invaluable in fields like medicine, where doctors use it to predict whether a patient will develop a condition based on risk factors. Then there's the heavyweight champion of complexity, polynomial regression. While linear regression handles straight lines, polynomial regression bends and curves to fit more intricate data patterns. Imagine trying to model how a plant grows, slow at first, then rapidly, and finally tapering off. It's not a straight line, but polynomial regression lets us capture these nuances with precision. Here's the thing. Each of these regression types has its own superpower. Linear regression is the simplest and fastest, perfect for quick insights. Logistic regression helps us make binary predictions, essential for decisions with a clear yes or no outcome. And polynomial regression, that's the one you pull out when you need to handle complexity and reveal patterns you didn't even know existed. Now, here's the exciting part. While understanding the math behind these models is crucial, knowing when and how to apply them is where the magic truly happens. This knowledge is what separates a novice from a master in data analysis. But we're only scratching the surface here. Regression analysis is a vast world full of practical applications and fascinating challenges. From predicting sales trends in businesses to diagnosing diseases in healthcare, regression is shaping decisions in almost every industry. So buckle up, because as we move forward, we're not just going to understand these models, we're going to learn how to wield them like pros. Ready to unlock the secrets of data and master predictive analysis? Let's roll up our sleeves and keep the momentum going. Imagine you're standing at the edge of a field trying to predict how much wheat will grow based on how much water you'll provide. That's essentially what linear regression does. It connects cause and effect. It's the simplest, yet one of the most powerful tools in a data analyst's arsenal. At its core, linear regression is about finding relationships, quantifying how one thing influences another. But here's the catch. The relationship has to be linear. That means for every increase in X, like adding more water, you get a predictable and proportional increase or decrease in Y, like more wheat. For this magical process to work, a few ground rules need to be in place. Linearity. The relationship between variables should follow a straight path. If you're trying to model the flight of a paper plane with a straight line, but the actual path loops and dives, you're already off course. Independence. Each data point should stand on its own. Imagine trying to predict tomorrow's weather based on today, and the past week's observations have secretly ganged up to influence each other. Linear regression doesn't play well in those scenarios. Homoscedasticity. Fancy word, simple meaning. Your prediction errors should be consistent across all values. If you're trying to predict house prices, your error can't balloon for mansions and shrink for tiny homes. Normality of residuals. Those little prediction errors we just talked about, they should be random and normally distributed, like a fair roll of a dice. Now, let's get to the math. The equation that runs this show is y for v0 plus v1x plus a. Think of v0 as the starting point, your intercept, while v1 is the slope, the rate of change. And a? That's the unpredictable randomness of life, the error term. Together they form the line that minimizes the gap between predicted and actual values. Linear regression is built on data. Step 1. Gather your numbers, both dependent, what you're predicting, and independent, what's driving the change. Then, let algorithms like ordinary least squares, OLS, do the heavy lifting, crunching numbers to calculate the slope and intercept. Finally, evaluate how well your model performs using metrics like R-squared, which tells you how much of the variation in Y is explained by X. Linear regression is everywhere. Businesses use it to forecast sales based on marketing spend. Economists use it to study relationships like unemployment and inflation. Farmers use it to estimate crop yields based on weather conditions. The possibilities are endless, and the simplicity of the method makes it a favorite across industries. But let me tell you, linear regression isn't without its challenges. Misuse it, like trying to fit a straight line to data that's clearly curving, and you're setting yourself up for failure. This is why understanding the assumptions and limitations of the model is just as important as applying it. As we dig deeper into regression techniques, linear regression will always remain our foundational block, a tool we'll keep coming back to time and again. Up next, we'll look at how we can go beyond the straight line to tackle the twists and turns of real-world data. Imagine you're working for an online retail company, trying to predict whether a visitor will make a purchase or just leave the site. It's not about how much they'll spend, it's whether they'll buy at all. That's where logistic regression comes in. It's a statistical method designed to handle outcomes that are binary: yes, no, true, false, 1, 0. Logistic regression is all about probabilities. It helps us predict the likelihood of an event happening, like whether a patient has a disease based on symptoms or whether a loan applicant will default based on their credit history. The beauty of this method is that it models the relationship between a binary dependent variable, like purchase, no purchase, and one or more independent variables, like browsing time, cart size, or past buying behavior. Logistic regression is a superstar in binary classification tasks. Let's break it down. Medical diagnoses. Imagine predicting whether a patient has diabetes based on factors like weight, blood pressure, and glucose levels. It's either yes, they do, or no, they don't. A perfect fit for logistic regression. Credit scoring. Financial institutions use logistic regression to decide if an applicant is likely to default on a loan. A combination of income, credit score, and existing debt can predict whether someone is a high-risk or low-risk borrower. Marketing campaigns. Picture this. You're running an ad campaign and you want to predict whether someone who clicked the ad will make a purchase. Logistic regression takes in data like age, location, and interaction history to give you the odds. What makes this model tick is the logistic function, a mathematical twist that converts predictions into probabilities between 0 and 1. If the probability is closer to 1, the model leans toward a yes. If closer to 0, it's a no. Before you unleash logistic regression, certain conditions need to hold true. Binary dependent variable. The outcome must be categorical, no decimals, no in-betweens. Think of it as flipping a coin. Heads or tails? No, it landed on the edge. Independent observations. Each data point must be unique and unaffected by others. If the outcomes influence each other, like multiple predictions for a single customer, logistic regression might give you a flawed output. Linear relationship in the logit? Here's the technical part. Logistic regression doesn't assume a linear relationship between your variables outright, but it assumes that the logit, the log odds of the probability, has a linear relationship with the predictors. This might sound complicated, but it's what makes the model flexible yet accurate. No multicollinearity. Independent variables should not be highly correlated. Otherwise, your model can struggle to understand which variable is actually influencing the outcome. In essence, logistic regression turns complexity into clarity. It's like a decision-making compass guiding you through the fog of uncertainty. Whether you're a marketer, a doctor, or a data scientist, this model helps answer one of the most important questions: will it happen or not? But as powerful as it is, logistic regression is just one tool in the regression toolbox. There's a world beyond binary outcomes. And up next, we'll explore how regression models can handle nonlinear relationships. Imagine you're analyzing the growth of plants in a controlled environment. You notice that the relationship between light intensity and plant height isn't linear. At first, growth accelerates with more light, then plateaus, and might even decline if the light becomes too intense. A straight line just won't cut it here. You need a curve that can adapt to these nuances. That's where polynomial regression steps in. Polynomial regression is like linear regression with a twist, literally. It extends linear regression by fitting an nth degree polynomial to the data. Instead of forcing a straight line relationship, this method allows the model to bend and adapt, capturing more complex patterns. How does it work? Think of polynomial regression as upgrading from a ruler to a flexible wire. You start with a simple equation, y v0 plus v1x plus v2x2 plus plus b and xn plus a. Here's the twist. Those higher degree terms like x2 and x3 add the curves to your line. The more terms you add, the more flexible your model becomes. But, and this is crucial, there's a fine line between capturing real trends and overfitting noise. Why use polynomial regression? This method is a lifesaver when relationships in your data are nonlinear but still follow some predictable pattern. Here are a few scenarios where it shines. Market trends. Imagine analyzing sales data over time. Sales might increase at a steady pace initially, then spike during the holiday season, and eventually stabilize. Polynomial regression captures this ebb and flow. Engineering applications. In manufacturing, stress-strain relationships in materials often have non-linear patterns. Polynomial regression helps model and predict these behaviors. Climate modeling. Temperature changes over a year might not follow a straight line, but a polynomial curve can reveal seasonal patterns, peaks, and troughs. And the key features and benefits, you ask? Captures nonlinear relationships. Whether it's exponential growth or diminishing returns, polynomial regression can map out the curve. Flexible model fitting. By adjusting the degree of the polynomial, you can find the perfect balance between accuracy and complexity. Improved fit for complex data. When linear regression leaves too much unexplained variance, polynomial regression steps in. With great power comes great responsibility. While adding higher degree terms makes the model more flexible, it can also make it overly sensitive to noise in the data. This is known as overfitting. Your model works perfectly for your training data, but fails miserably with new, unseen data. It's like memorizing answers to a test instead of understanding the concepts. To avoid overfitting, use cross-validation to evaluate your model. Regularize the polynomial terms with methods like ridge or lasso regression. Start simple and increase the polynomial degree only if necessary. Polynomial regression is like upgrading from a bicycle to a sports car. It's fast, powerful, and can take you places linear regression simply can't. But use it wisely, or you might end up with a model that's too complex to be practical. As we continue, we'll break down the step-by-step process of conducting regression analysis. Stay tuned. You're about to master the mechanics of this fascinating journey. All right, it's time to demystify the process of conducting regression analysis. This is where we break down the journey from raw data to actionable insights. Think of it as building a masterpiece. You need a solid foundation, the right tools, and attention to every detail. The 4 key steps in regression analysis. Let's walk through each step, and I promise by the end of this, you'll feel like a regression pro. 1. Data collection. The first step is all about gathering the raw materials. You need data that is relevant, reliable, and representative. For instance, if you're trying to predict house prices, your data should include variables like square footage, location, and the number of bedrooms. Sources might include surveys, experiments, or publicly available datasets. The mantra here is the quality of your analysis depends on the quality of your data. Incomplete or biased data will lead to flawed models. So treat this step like laying the foundation for a skyscraper. It needs to be solid. 2. Data preparation. Think of this step as preparing ingredients before cooking. No one wants to bake with spoiled milk, right? Similarly, data preparation ensures your dataset is clean, complete, and ready for action. Key tasks include handling missing values. Use techniques like imputation to fill in gaps, or remove incomplete rows if necessary. Dealing with outliers. Identify and decide whether they're insights or errors. Encoding variables. Convert categorical variables into numerical formats like one-hot encoding. Normalization. Scale numerical data to make variables comparable. This step might not sound glamorous, but it's the unsung hero of good regression analysis. Clean data equals clear insights. 3. Model selection and fitting. Now it's time to bring your data to life by selecting the right regression model. The choice depends on your problem. Linear regression, perfect for simple, straight-line relationships. Logistic regression, great for predicting binary outcomes like yes, no, or pass, fail. Polynomial regression, best for capturing more complex, curved relationships. After selecting your model, the magic happens. Fitting the model to your data. This is done using statistical tools or software like Python, R, or Excel. The goal here is to estimate the coefficients, like V0, V1, etc., that best represent the relationships in your dataset. 4. Model evaluation. Finally, you need to evaluate your model's performance. Think of this as quality control. It ensures your masterpiece is ready to be presented. Key metrics include R-squared, measures how much of the variation in the dependent variable is explained by the model. RMSE, root mean square error, evaluates the average error in predictions. Residual analysis looks for patterns in the prediction errors to ensure your model assumptions hold. If your model underperforms, don't sweat it. This step also helps you refine it. Maybe you missed an important variable or need to try a different type of regression. Iteration is the name of the game here. When you combine these 4 steps, you're not just crunching numbers, you're uncovering stories hidden in your data. For example, in marketing, regression can reveal which factors drive sales. In healthcare, it can predict patient outcomes based on historical data. In finance, it can forecast stock prices or credit risk. By mastering this process, you're building a bridge between raw data and strategic decision-making. And as we move forward, we'll take a closer look at the assumptions that underpin regression analysis, because understanding these will ensure your analysis is not just accurate, but also trustworthy. Now, let's dive into assumptions of regression analysis. If you want your regression model to work its magic, understanding these assumptions is non-negotiable. Think of them as the ground rules for a successful analysis. Break these rules and your model might look good on paper but fail miserably in practice. Let's walk through each assumption step by step with real-world relevance to make it stick. 1. Linearity. This is the heart of regression. It assumes that the relationship between the independent and dependent variables is linear. In simple terms, if you plot the data, the trend should resemble a straight line, at least roughly. For example, an increase in study hours should proportionally increase test scores if it's a linear relationship. If this isn't true, your linear regression model will struggle. You can check this using scatter plots or residual plots. If the data looks more like a curve, you might need to consider polynomial regression instead. 2. Independence. Each observation in your dataset should be independent of the others. Why? Because if one observation influences another, it can distort your model's predictions. Think of it like flipping a coin. Each flip should be independent. But if someone's flipping a trick coin, the outcomes are no longer random, and your analysis will be biased. Violations of this assumption often occur in time series data. Imagine predicting stock prices. They're highly correlated with previous days' prices. In such cases, you'll need special techniques like autoregressive models. 3. Homoscedasticity, fancy word, right? But the idea is simple. It means that the variance of the errors, residuals, is constant across all levels of the independent variables. If it's not, your model is heteroscedastic, and that's a problem. Here's an example. Say you're analyzing house prices. If the errors are larger for luxury homes than for smaller homes, your model isn't performing equally well across the board. You can detect this by plotting residuals. If you see a fan shape, errors increasing or decreasing with the predicted value, it's a red flag. Fixing this might involve transforming your data or using weighted regression. 4. Normality. The residuals of your model should follow a normal distribution. Why? Because this ensures the reliability of hypothesis tests and confidence intervals. Picture this. If you're baking cookies and your ingredients, errors are evenly spread. The outcome is predictable. But if there's an imbalance, the result might be inconsistent. Check this assumption with Q plots, or statistical tests like the Shapiro-Wilk test. If normality is violated, consider data transformations or robust regression techniques. 5. No multicollinearity. Multicollinearity occurs when your independent variables are too closely related to each other. For instance, if you're predicting house prices and include both square footage and the number of rooms, these variables are highly correlated, which can confuse your model. This leads to inflated variances in the coefficient estimates, making it hard to determine each variable's true effect. You can detect this using variance inflation factor, VIF. A VIF above 10 is usually a sign of trouble. To resolve it, consider dropping redundant variables or combining them into a single feature. Why these assumptions matter. Ignoring these assumptions is like building a house on a shaky foundation. Sure, it might stand for a while, but it's only a matter of time before it collapses. By ensuring your data aligns with these assumptions, you're creating a model that's not only accurate but also trustworthy. Understanding these assumptions gives you the power to validate your regression model and ensure it holds up in the real world. Without these checks, even the most sophisticated models can produce misleading results. Next, we'll dive deeper into how to evaluate the performance of your regression models and fine-tune them to perfection. Let's keep the momentum going. When it comes to evaluating regression models, the key lies in understanding how well they explain the data and make accurate predictions. It's like being a coach analyzing a team's performance after a game. Did they score enough points? Did they play strategically? Or did they fumble? Similarly, with regression, we need metrics to tell us how well our model has performed. One of the most important measures is R-squared, which essentially tells us how much of the variation in the dependent variable is explained by the independent variables. A higher R-squared value indicates that the model is doing a good job at capturing the trends in the data, but don't be fooled. Perfection in R-squared doesn't always mean the model is flawless. It might just mean it's overfitting, capturing noise rather than meaningful patterns. To refine this measure, adjusted R-squared steps in, which adjusts the score based on the number of predictors. It prevents us from getting carried away by adding too many variables that don't contribute meaningful information. Think of it as a reality check. It penalizes excessive complexity. Then there's root mean square error, or RMSE, which measures how far the predicted values are from the actual ones. Lower values of RMSE mean the predictions are closer to reality, which is exactly what we want. If R-squared is about explaining trends, RMSE is about precision. Each of these measures gives us a lens to evaluate our model from different perspectives, ensuring we're not just seeing one side of the story. The goal is balance, a model that not only captures the data's patterns, but also makes accurate, reliable predictions when faced with new data. Understanding these metrics allows us to tune our model and make it as effective as possible. Regression analysis is a powerful tool, but like any tool, its effectiveness depends on how it's used. Imagine trying to build a house with a bent hammer. It might work, but the end result won't be pretty. In the same way, regression has pitfalls that can undermine its success if we're not careful. Understanding these challenges is crucial to building models that stand the test of real-world data. One common issue is multicollinearity. This occurs when independent variables are highly correlated with each other, like trying to balance a seesaw with two people sitting too close together. It makes it hard to understand the individual effect of each variable, leading to unstable coefficients and unreliable predictions. Addressing multicollinearity requires careful variable selection or techniques like ridge regression. Then there's overfitting, a model that learns the training data too well, capturing not just the meaningful patterns, but also the noise. It's like memorizing the answers to a practice test without understanding the material. Such a model might perform brilliantly on the training data, but fails miserably when applied to new data. The solution lies in regularization techniques and validation strategies. On the other hand, underfitting is the opposite problem. This happens when a model is too simple, failing to capture the complexity of the data. It's like trying to describe a masterpiece with just a few basic shapes. Important details are lost. Underfitting often leads to high bias and poor predictions, and addressing it involves enhancing model complexity or introducing more meaningful features. Ignoring assumptions is another pitfall. Regression analysis relies on assumptions like linearity, independence of observations, and normality of residuals. Violating these assumptions is like building a foundation on sand. It might hold for a while, but cracks will eventually show. Checking these assumptions and making necessary adjustments is critical to ensure the model's validity. Outliers and influential points are also a challenge. These are the extreme values in the data that can skew the results, much like a loud voice dominating a group discussion. It's essential to identify and evaluate their impact carefully, ensuring they don't disproportionately affect the model. By recognizing and addressing these pitfalls, you can build regression models that are robust, reliable, and ready for the complexities of real-world data. It's not just about knowing the techniques, it's about applying them thoughtfully and rigorously to avoid the traps that can derail your analysis. Multicollinearity is a hidden challenge in regression analysis, often lurking beneath the surface of your data. It occurs when two or more independent variables are highly correlated, creating redundancy in the information they provide. Imagine trying to hear distinct conversations in a crowded room where everyone is saying similar things. It's difficult to isolate one clear voice. That's the essence of multicollinearity. When multicollinearity is present, the regression model struggles to determine the individual effect of each predictor. This leads to inflated standard errors for the coefficients, making them unstable and hard to interpret. As a result, even important variables might appear insignificant, and the model's predictions become less reliable. The implications extend beyond mere interpretation. High multicollinearity can distort the entire analysis, complicating efforts to draw meaningful conclusions. It's like trying to untangle a web of interconnected strings. Pulling one affects all the others. This instability in coefficient estimates can lead to misleading insights, even when the overall model fit seems acceptable. Addressing multicollinearity requires a careful approach. Methods such as variance inflation factor (VF) analysis can help identify the degree of correlation between variables. If multicollinearity is detected, strategies like removing redundant variables, combining highly correlated predictors, or using regularization techniques such as ridge regression can mitigate its effects. Understanding and resolving multicollinearity is essential for building a robust regression model. By ensuring that each variable provides unique and valuable information, you can enhance the reliability of your analysis and uncover deeper, more accurate insights from your data. Overfitting and underfitting are like two sides of the same coin in regression analysis, both representing challenges in achieving the perfect balance for a predictive model. Let's take a closer look at both. Overfitting occurs when a model becomes too tailored to the specific details or noise in the training data. Imagine you're trying to learn a new dance routine, but instead of focusing on the general moves, you memorize every single wobble and misstep from the instructor. While you might perform perfectly in practice, you're likely to stumble on stage when the music changes. In regression, overfitting happens when a model becomes overly complex, often by including too many variables or higher order terms, leading to poor performance on unseen data. The model's performance on the training set is impressive, but this comes at the cost of generalizability. Avoiding overfitting requires techniques like cross-validation, pruning unnecessary features, or employing regularization methods like lasso or ridge regression to reduce complexity. Underfitting, on the other hand, is the opposite problem. It's like preparing for an exam by just skimming through chapter summaries instead of studying the details. The result? You miss key insights and fail to answer questions accurately. In regression, underfitting happens when a model is too simple to capture the underlying trends in the data. This leads to poor performance on both the training and validation datasets. It might occur if you neglect important variables or choose an inappropriate model form, such as assuming linear relationships when the data exhibits non-linearity. To combat underfitting, increasing model complexity, incorporating relevant features, or using more sophisticated algorithms can help. Striking a balance between overfitting and underfitting is essential to creating a robust regression model. This balance ensures that the model is both flexible enough to capture meaningful patterns in the data and constrained enough to perform well on new, unseen datasets. It's this delicate equilibrium that transforms good models into great ones, ready to handle the complexities of real-world applications. Regularization techniques are among the most powerful tools in a data scientist's arsenal when it comes to tackling the twin challenges of overfitting and underfitting. At its core, regularization introduces penalties to a model's complexity, guiding it toward balance and improved generalizability. Let's delve deeper into these methods and why they matter. Imagine you're packing for a long trip. Your suitcase represents the model, and the items you pack are its features. Overpacking too many features will make it difficult to close the suitcase, just as an overly complex model struggles with overfitting. Underpacking too few features, however, leaves you unprepared, akin to underfitting. Regularization is like having a disciplined packing checklist that ensures you pack just enough without going overboard. Lasso regression, or L1 regularization, is akin to deciding which items to leave behind. By penalizing the absolute values of the coefficients, it encourages sparsity, driving some coefficients down to zero. This essentially removes irrelevant or redundant features, making the model simpler and more interpretable. For example, in a dataset with dozens of predictors, Lasso will automatically pack only the most critical ones, leaving out the rest. Ridge regression, or L2 regularization, takes a different approach. Instead of eliminating features, it shrinks the coefficients by penalizing their squared values. This method is particularly useful in situations where multicollinearity, the correlation between independent variables, is present. By stabilizing the coefficients, ridge regression ensures that the model remains reliable even when predictors are interrelated, much like carefully arranging your items to fit into the suitcase more compactly. Then there's Elastic Net, which combines the best of both worlds. It incorporates both L1 and L2 penalties, striking a balance between feature selection and coefficient shrinkage. This is especially useful when dealing with datasets where predictors are both numerous and highly correlated. Elastic Net ensures that the model is not only compact but also highly functional, much like a perfectly packed suitcase for a complex trip. Regularization is more than just a mathematical trick. It's a strategic decision-making process. By introducing penalties, it discourages overfitting, ensures stability in the face of noisy data, and maintains the predictive power of the model. In real-world scenarios, whether you're predicting housing prices or optimizing marketing spend, regularization acts as a safeguard against the extremes, ensuring that your model is both robust and insightful. When building a regression model, one of the critical steps that can make or break its success is feature selection. Think of it like hiring a team for a project. You want the most competent members whose contributions are significant. Including unnecessary team members not only increases costs but also causes inefficiencies. The same principle applies to regression models. Selecting the right predictors is essential for building a robust and efficient model. Forward selection starts with an empty slate, much like beginning a hiring process from scratch. It iteratively adds predictors to the model based on their statistical significance. At each step, it evaluates which variable contributes the most to the model's performance. The process continues until no additional predictor provides significant improvement. It's like hiring candidates one by one, making sure each one adds value before moving to the next. On the other hand, backward elimination begins with everyone on the team. It assumes all predictors are in the model and gradually removes the least significant ones one by one until only the most impactful predictors remain. This method works like pruning a tree, cutting away the branches that don't bear fruit so that the remaining ones can thrive. For those seeking balance, stepwise selection combines forward selection and backward elimination. It dynamically adds and removes predictors during the process, ensuring that only the most meaningful features are included in the model. This iterative approach strikes a balance between complexity and simplicity, much like managing a budget while maintaining high-quality outcomes. Feature selection isn't just about reducing the number of predictors. It's about making the model interpretable and avoiding overfitting. Reducing irrelevant predictors helps simplify the model, making it easier to understand and explain to stakeholders. Moreover, it reduces noise, allowing the model to focus on the true relationships in the data. In essence, feature selection is the art of choosing the right ingredients for your recipe. Whether you start with nothing, everything, or a mix of both approaches, the goal remains the same: to build a model that's efficient, accurate, and interpretable. By paying careful attention to feature selection, you ensure your model is not only powerful but also practical. Understanding regression coefficients is like learning a new language, a language that speaks the story of your data. Every coefficient in a regression model tells us something about the relationship between the independent variables, predictors, and the dependent variable, outcome. To unlock the full potential of your model, you need to decipher these numbers and understand what they truly mean. At its core, a regression coefficient represents the expected change in the dependent variable for a one-unit change in the corresponding predictor, keeping all other variables constant. Imagine you're analyzing housing prices and the coefficient for square footage is 2.5. This means that for every additional square foot, the price of the house increases by 2.5 units, e.g., dollars or thousands of dollars, assuming all other factors remain the same. It's a way to quantify the influence of each predictor. However, not all coefficients are created equal. Statistical significance, often determined by p-values, is a crucial checkpoint. A low p-value, typically less than 0.05, indicates that the relationship between the predictor and the dependent variable is statistically significant and unlikely to be due to chance. On the flip side, a high p-value suggests that the predictor may not have a meaningful impact. It's like testing a hypothesis. If the evidence supports it, you keep the variable. If not, it's time to reconsider its place in the model. Direction and magnitude are other vital elements. Positive coefficients indicate that as the predictor increases, so does the dependent variable. Negative coefficients, on the other hand, suggest an inverse relationship. The magnitude of the coefficient reveals the strength of this relationship. For example, a coefficient of 5.0 suggests a stronger influence than one of 0.5. It's about understanding not just whether there's a connection, but how strong and in what direction it runs. Interpreting regression coefficients is also about context. A large coefficient might seem impressive, but if the units of the predictor are massive, e.g., population in millions, the practical impact could still be relatively small. Similarly, even a small coefficient might have a significant impact in scenarios where precision is critical, such as predicting patient outcomes in healthcare. In short, regression coefficients are your bridge between statistical output and real-world application. They provide the insights needed to make informed decisions, optimize strategies, and understand the nuances of your data. By mastering the interpretation of these coefficients, you transform numbers into actionable intelligence, bringing the story of your data to life. Residual analysis is like the final test that ensures our regression model is not just mathematically accurate, but also meaningful in real-world applications. Residuals, simply put, are the differences between the observed values and the values predicted by the regression model. They tell us how well or how poorly the model is capturing the underlying patterns in the data. It's the crucial diagnostic step where we ask, did we miss anything? Think of residuals as the errors in your model, but not necessarily mistakes. A residual value reflects the part of the dependent variable that wasn't explained by the independent variables. For instance, if you're using a model to predict house prices and the actual price is $300,000 while the predicted price is $290,000, the residual is $10,000. This difference could result from factors not included in the model or randomness inherent in the data. Analyzing residuals is like putting the model under a microscope. One of the primary goals is to check if they are randomly distributed. A good regression model should produce residuals that are evenly spread around zero without any clear pattern. If residuals cluster in a certain way, like forming a curve, it could signal that the model has failed to capture some critical aspect of the relationship, perhaps a non-linear trend or an interaction between variables. Residual analysis also helps validate the assumptions of regression, such as linearity, independence, and homoscedasticity, constant variance of residuals. For example, if the variance of the residuals increases with the value of the predictor, it suggests heteroscedasticity, which can undermine the reliability of the model. Similarly, residuals that show a systematic pattern may hint at omitted variables or the need for a different model altogether. Graphical methods are invaluable here. Residual plots, for example, are a powerful visual tool. When you plot residuals against predicted values or independent variables, you should see a random scatter. Anything else, like a funnel shape or a curve, signals a problem. Histograms and QQ plots of residuals can further assess their normality, ensuring they align with the assumptions of regression analysis. There's also a statistical side to residual analysis. Tests like the Durbin-Watson statistic can detect autocorrelation in residuals, while the Bruch-Pagan test can diagnose heteroscedasticity. These quantitative tools complement visual inspections, providing additional confidence or caution in the model's validity. The importance of residual analysis extends beyond diagnostics. It's a way to identify outliers and influential data points that could skew the results. By examining residuals, we can pinpoint observations that don't fit the model well and decide whether they represent unique cases that need special attention or errors that should be corrected or excluded. In essence, residual analysis is the final checkpoint in regression analysis. It ensures the model isn't just statistically sound, but also robust and reliable in capturing the reality of the data. By scrutinizing residuals, we move from mere predictions to meaningful insights, ensuring our model truly serves its intended purpose. Outliers in regression analysis are like unexpected bumps on an otherwise smooth road. They stand out because they deviate significantly from the trend that the rest of the data follows. While outliers may seem like just a few rogue data points, their impact on regression models can be profound, influencing everything from the slope of the regression line to the reliability of predictions. Detecting outliers is the first step in understanding their influence. Statistical methods such as z-scores and the interquartile range, IQR, provide numerical thresholds to identify data points that lie far outside the expected range. For instance, a z-score greater than 3 or less than 3 often flags an observation as an outlier. Similarly, IQR-based methods identify values that fall significantly below the first quartile or above the third quartile. These techniques create a systematic way to uncover potential issues. But numbers alone don't tell the whole story. Visual methods are just as critical. Scatter plots and box plots are straightforward yet effective tools for spotting outliers. In a scatter plot, outliers will appear as isolated points far from the cluster of other observations. Box plots highlight these anomalies as points beyond the whiskers, providing a clear visual cue for further investigation. The presence of outliers can affect a regression model in two major ways. First, they can distort the coefficients, particularly the slope and intercept of the regression line. Since ordinary least squares OLS regression minimizes the square differences, an outlier with a large residual can pull the regression line toward itself, skewing the results. This distortion can make it difficult to interpret the relationships between variables accurately. Second, outliers inflate error metrics like the root mean square error, RMSE, which measures the average deviation between observed and predicted values. A single extreme outlier can disproportionately increase the RMSE, giving the false impression that the model performs poorly overall. This is why addressing outliers is crucial for model evaluation and refinement. Handling outliers requires a careful balance between preserving the integrity of the data and ensuring the model's reliability. One approach is data transformation, where mathematical techniques like log transformations or square roots are applied to reduce the impact of outliers. These methods stabilize the variance and make the data more amenable to linear regression. Another effective strategy is robust regression techniques, such as random sample consensus, RANSAC, or Huber regression. Unlike OLS, these methods are less sensitive to extreme values and can produce more reliable estimates in the presence of outliers. For instance, RANSAC iteratively fits the model to subsets of data, excluding outliers, while Huber regression uses a loss function that diminishes the influence of extreme deviations. Finally, outliers should always be interpreted within their context. Not all outliers are errors. Some may represent unique or rare events that provide valuable insights. For example, a spike in housing prices during a real estate boom could be an outlier in historical data, but it might still hold crucial information for forecasting future trends. In the end, handling outliers is not just about cleaning the data, it's about making informed decisions that enhance the model's reliability without losing sight of what the data truly represents. By identifying, understanding, and addressing outliers, we ensure that the regression model captures the essence of the data while remaining robust and accurate. Regression analysis in R is like wielding a multi-tool. It's versatile, efficient, and built for those who love digging deep into data. If you've ever worked with R, you know its power lies in its rich ecosystem of libraries and functions specifically designed for statistical modeling and visualization. Here's a closer look at how regression analysis unfolds in this powerful platform. The journey begins with data preparation. Before diving into modeling, the data needs to be in pristine condition. Using R's functions like read.csv or read.table, datasets are imported with ease. Next comes the essential task of cleaning, checking for missing values and handling outliers. Functions like summary and star come in handy to explore the structure of your dataset and identify inconsistencies. Transforming categorical variables into factors using as.factor ensures that R recognizes them correctly in the analysis. This step ensures a strong foundation for regression. Exploratory data analysis, EDA, is where the fun begins. Using visualization libraries like ggplot2, relationships between variables come to life through scatter plots, histograms, and box plots. You can spot trends, correlations, and even potential multicollinearity issues among predictors. With simple commands like core, you can compute correlation matrices, offering insights into which variables are closely related and should be used cautiously in the model. The heart of the process is model fitting. With just a single command, lm, you can fit a linear regression model in R. For instance, if you want to predict house prices based on size and location, your formula might look like this. Model lm price, size, plus location, data, dataset. The output from summary model provides a treasure trove of information, from coefficients and p-values to the r-squared value. This step demystifies the relationship between predictors and the target variable. But a model is only as good as its evaluation. R makes it seamless to assess performance with diagnostic plots. By using plot model, you can visualize residuals to check for normality and homoscedasticity. Residuals versus fitted plots help identify patterns or violations of assumptions, while QQ plots ensure residuals follow a normal distribution. Metrics like mean squared error, MSE, and R-squared are calculated to quantify the model's predictive accuracy. Finally, refinement and iteration complete the cycle. Based on evaluation results, adjustments might include removing insignificant predictors, adding interaction terms, or even trying polynomial regression for nonlinear relationships. R's flexibility shines here, allowing you to iterate quickly and efficiently. By the end of this process, regression analysis in R doesn't just give you a model, it provides a story of your data, backed by robust statistics and compelling visuals. It's not just about numbers, it's about crafting actionable insights that drive decision-making. Regression analysis in Python is like using a master toolset for data science. With Python's vast library ecosystem, you can perform regression analysis efficiently and customize it for different use cases. Let's break this process into key steps. First, it all begins with data preparation. Imagine this as cleaning and organizing a workspace before starting a project. Using Python, you load data from files like CSV or Excel into a structured format, typically using libraries like pandas. The data is then cleaned to remove missing values, duplicates, or inconsistencies. For instance, categorical data, such as city names, needs to be converted into a numerical format that models can understand. Techniques like one-hot encoding or label encoding are often used for this. Next comes feature selection. Here, you decide which variables, features in your dataset are the most relevant to your analysis. Think of this step as decluttering, removing irrelevant information to focus only on what truly matters. Tools like correlation matrices or statistical tests help identify relationships between features and the target variable. This ensures that the analysis doesn't get overwhelmed by noise or redundant information. Now we get to model fitting. At this stage, you use Python to build the regression model that will describe the relationship between variables. You split your dataset into two parts, one for training the model and one for testing it. This ensures the model is not just memorizing the data, but actually learning patterns that it can apply to new, unseen data. The process involves calculating coefficients for each feature, which indicate how much they influence the target variable. Once the model is built, it's time for evaluation. Python provides tools to measure how well the model performs. Metrics like R-squared tell you how much of the variability in your target variable can be explained by the model. Meanwhile, error metrics like mean squared error, MSE, show how far off the predictions are from the actual values on average. Visualization tools, such as plotting predicted values against actual ones, help you identify patterns or anomalies in the model's behavior. Finally, there's the refinement step. Based on your evaluation, you may discover areas for improvement. For instance, you might add more complex relationships, adjust hyperparameters, or include new features. Python's flexibility allows for this iterative process, making it easier to refine the model until it delivers the desired accuracy and insights. Throughout the entire process, Python's libraries, such as pandas for data handling, scikit-learn for modeling, and matplotlib for visualization, act as your toolkit. Each step builds upon the last, transforming raw data into actionable insights with precision and efficiency. Regression analysis finds its way into numerous real-world applications, influencing a variety of industries in significant ways. Let's explore three major areas where it makes a profound impact. First, finance. Regression analysis serves as a key tool in financial decision-making. For example, it is used for risk assessment to evaluate the relationship between financial indicators and potential risks. A common application is the Capital Asset Pricing Model, CAPM, which helps investors estimate expected returns based on market risks. Similarly, financial institutions leverage regression models for credit scoring, predicting the likelihood of loan defaults. This insight allows lenders to streamline decision-making processes while minimizing risk exposure. Next, healthcare. In healthcare, regression analysis can be a game changer. It is frequently used for predicting patient outcomes, understanding how variables like age, gender, or medical history impact recovery rates. For example, hospitals analyze data to optimize treatment plans, ensuring better resource allocation and improved patient care. Moreover, resource management benefits from regression by forecasting patient admissions, allowing hospitals to allocate staff and equipment efficiently. This helps address capacity issues and maintain a smooth workflow in emergency scenarios. And yes, marketing, of course. Marketers rely heavily on regression analysis to unlock consumer behavior insights. One critical use is in sales forecasting, where companies predict future revenue trends based on advertising spend, seasonality, and economic factors. These forecasts guide marketing budgets and inventory planning. Additionally, customer segmentation uses regression to identify distinct buyer profiles, enabling targeted campaigns that resonate with specific audiences. By understanding the factors that drive consumer decisions, marketers can craft strategies to maximize engagement and profitability. Across these domains, regression analysis proves its versatility, enabling professionals to predict trends, optimize resources, and make data-driven decisions. Whether it's managing risks, improving patient care, or driving sales, regression analysis provides the clarity needed to act with confidence. It's not just a mathematical tool, it's a strategic asset shaping industries every day. Regression analysis is more than just a statistical method. It's a powerful tool that helps uncover relationships, make predictions, and drive informed decision-making across industries. From finance to healthcare, marketing to engineering, regression analysis plays a crucial role in understanding data patterns and optimizing outcomes. Looking back, we explored the different types of regression, from simple linear models that map straightforward relationships to more advanced techniques like polynomial regression for capturing complex trends. We examined the importance of assumptions such as linearity and independence, ensuring that models are both valid and reliable. We tackled key challenges like overfitting, multicollinearity, and outliers, each of which can distort predictions if not carefully managed. Beyond theory, we saw how regression analysis is applied in the real world, shaping financial risk assessments, improving patient care, and fine-tuning marketing strategies. The ability to interpret coefficients, analyze residuals, and use regularization techniques makes regression a dynamic and adaptable tool for problem solving. As data continues to grow in volume and complexity, regression analysis remains a cornerstone of predictive analytics, evolving alongside machine learning and AI. Whether you're refining business strategies, conducting scientific research, or making policy decisions, understanding regression equips you with the skills to translate raw data into meaningful insights. Mastering regression isn't just about crunching numbers, it's about asking the right questions, validating findings, and using data to make smarter decisions. The next step is to take this knowledge and apply it, exploring how regression can unlock new opportunities and provide a deeper understanding of the world around us.